Thanks for dropping in. It's time for another You Asked For It episode. In this series, I update existing designs based on your feedback and suggestions. I have 5 projects to cover, so let's dive in. This is the new and improved Lunar Lighthouse puzzle box. While designing the puzzle, I was pretty sure that the solver wouldn't be able to bypass the mechanism by manipulating it through this tiny lighthouse window. I expected that any such attempts would be thwarted thanks to a few hidden magnets which hold the mechanism in place. Well, apparently I underestimated the dexterity of a determined puzzle solver, especially if they're given a copy of the puzzle which uses weaker magnets. The improved lighthouse tackles this oversight in 2 ways, one blunt and one clever. Let's cover the blunt solution first. The sealing of the lighthouse shell now has holes for up to 6 additional magnets. That's an optional total of 9. More magnets means more force is necessary to twist the puzzle mechanism. If the magnets you're using are sufficiently strong, you won't need to add more than the default configuration. That's 3 magnets located near the lighthouse window. Did you spot the second solution to this problem? The magnets had been moved further out from the center of the mechanism's axis of rotation. Thanks to some basic geometry, this means that each step of the puzzle's rotation locks in with greater precision. It also prevents adjacent magnets from pulling the disc forward too easily. These 2 improvements work together to make bypassing the puzzle more difficult. They also make the actual solution feel more snappy as parts click into place. So, if you plan to print a new copy, I recommend jumping directly to this updated version. 3 months ago, I released the Novel Wallet, a little booklet to store your gift cards in one convenient spot. Its compact size is great for travel, but maybe a stationary solution would be better for some, especially if you have a large gift card collection. That's where our next viewer request comes in, a Rolodex compatible version of the Novel Wallet. This request may seem a little out of left field if you didn't know that I've already dabbled in 3D printed Rolodex designs, specifically my Rolodex-compatible filament swatches. So a mashup of these 2 projects makes a ton of sense. And here it is, a Rolodex gift card clip. It's pretty simple. Just a short card with a springy clip and a couple holes to attach to a Rolodex. Don't have a Rolodex? No problem. This project comes with all the parts needed to print your own. The clips are printed straight up, like this, and require no supports. But I do recommend a brim. They're pretty thin. It's also best to use a nice strong filament that won't snap when you install the clips. The connections are pretty tight. Next up is a mirror universe doppelganger of the last design. I've taken the filament swatches from my Rolodex project and turned them into a booklet. Is a good option if you want to organize your swatch library into multiple mini collections, or if you want something that's easier to carry around than a Rolodex. This is an OpenSCAD project, which means you use a simple form to generate a customized STL file. My original filament swatch video covers that process in detail, so instead of retreading old ground, I'll link to that in the video description. These filament swatches have a ton of customization options. Up to 5 rows of text, each with individual font and size settings, an optional thickness preview, an optional bridging test, and a star indicator to flag your favorite filaments. Once you finish printing your swatches, use a scrap of raw TPU filament to bind them together. Sewing elastic also works, but it needs to be thin enough to fit through the tiny holes in the cards. I also created an optional cover if you plan to glue the ends of your TPU instead of just tying them into a knot. The cover can act as a sacrificial part to glue onto. Let's move away from booklets and Rolodexes. Last fall, I designed the Googol maze. a modular maze which supports an absurd number of possible layouts. But maybe you don't want to deal with all these little wall inserts. For those that requested it, I've created several pre-built maze inserts. Skip the tiny walls and snap in an entire maze layout. Or you can take a pre-built maze that's smaller than your frame and use it just as a starting point for a larger custom design. For now, I created one layout per maze size, but I'm also sharing maze templates, so you can design your own pre-built inserts. Maybe we'll see some maze remixes in the future. The last update is a new bobblehead design, a rock-on Bobblehand. If you're well versed in the world of 3D printing YouTubers, you may have guessed the inspiration behind this specific request. Yep, this is an Uncle Jessy exclusive, and for those who somehow found this video, but are completely unfamiliar with Uncle Jessy's work, I've added a link to his channel in the video description. In addition to being known for his favorite hand gesture, Uncle Jessy specializes in cosplay props, superhero-themed prints, and resin printers. Okay, back to the bobblehead. This hand comes in two different sizes. The smaller hand really doesn't have any room for my standard bobblehead port, so instead it bounces around the top of its spring. Both of the designs are a little top-heavy, so I included beefier than normal springs. You can choose between 4 different spring lengths to get the specific bobbling intensity you're looking for. Unfortunately, this is one of those rare 3D printy designs that does require supports. But on the bright side, all the truffle spots are hidden behind the thumb. So even if you don't get a perfect print, it shouldn't be all that noticeable. And if you're on Prusa Slicer, I've included the pre-supported 3MF files that worked for me. If you're watching this video the week it's posted, I have more bobblehead news. Printables.com is running a bobblehead-themed contest, and I'll be helping with judging the entries. At the time of recording this, there are already over 100 bobblehead designs, so check it out. That's all the requests for this update. If you've sent me a remix in the past, whether I covered it here or not, thanks for following along and sharing your ideas. It's really appreciated. So until next time, happy printing, and thanks for stopping by. The rock-on Bobblehand involved a completely different workflow than I use for any of my other designs, so I figured I'd throw in a few little clips here of what I did in order to create it. The basic model was designed in Nomad Sculpt, and that was just a very rough model to get the general size and shape of all the hand parts. Then I imported that model into Cozy Blanket, an app that's great at making low poly models from more complicated ones. After that was done, I imported that into Fusion 360, added the standard bobblehead port, and we were good to go.